Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Michael, and today I'm going to be taking you through a complete breakdown of how we created our Alicent Hightower dress as seen in season 1 of House of the Dragon. So Haley and I completely freaked out when we saw this dress for the first time. I think it came out in like September of 2022, The Green Dress. There's really a song named after it on the soundtrack called The Green Dress, and then the Hightowers declare war. They wear green! And so Alicent wears green for the rest of the series, and so we saw this dress and it just looked so incredible. It was such a big statement moment, and we finished the rest of the episode, but then rewound it and then paused and started taking screenshots of the TV, and it was all grainy and horrible. And then eventually the behind the scenes pictures started coming out, and then we were just collecting all of them and trying to find as much reference as we could to figure out how this crazy dress was constructed. After the episode premiered, Haley, with her research skills, immediately started researching where the brocade, this crazy green brocade, came from. Was it custom made? Did it come from a shop? Like with how big fantasy shows like that, it's kind of a toss-up. Like, is it going to be pre-made or is it going to be like custom made for the show? After 3 days of searching, she literally went through every fabric store in the fabric district in London, because the costume department really pulls a lot of stuff from English suppliers and British stores. Haley went through every website of every single store in the fashion district, and she found it. The screen accurate fabric, exactly what was used for the show. This is the exact brocade that was used to create the same dress that's in the show. It's from Top Fabric in London. It was very expensive. These shows have great big huge budgets, and we do not. And so looking at the price, we're like, oh no, I don't think we can do that. But then we remembered some people have crowdfunded before using Ko-fi or other similar websites to, people can contribute and support so that the projects can happen. And we're like, never done this before, but let's just go for it and see what happens. Figuring out like yardage. I used my Cersei dress pattern, the black Cersei dress that I've made for Haley before. This dress is very similar, and so I kind of used that to determine yardage, just getting a rough estimate of what we were going to need, and then determining the price from there. So we set the goal on our Ko-fi, and we were overwhelmed by the amount of people who donated, and they were so generous, and like in small amounts and larger amounts. I said that we were going to add anyone's name who donated to the hem of the dress, which I'll be showing you how I did that later on. And we're just so touched, and we're so grateful, because this dress couldn't have happened without the support of all of our social media community and our friends and family who all donated. So thank you all for helping this dress happen. So the Ko-fi was funded like several weeks after Haley discovered the fabric. We kind of took a while to get it all together and get it fully done. And so we went to Top Fabric and we put in the order for the amount of yardage that we needed, and it wasn't available at the yardage that we needed. I'm like, oh God, so our hearts sank. And then we put like a slightly less yardage and it sank and it wasn't available. And then we put slightly less yardage and slightly less, under 1 meter, and it was completely sold out. Even though the website said it was available, it wasn't actually available once you tried to put in the order. So we were devastated. We were like, oh no, we're gonna have to send everybody's money back. We can't keep the money. Like, we've never done this before, and oh, we didn't act soon enough, and we should have just done it. And we were really, really sad. But then Haley sent an email to Top Fabric and said, is there any chance that there's going to be a restock of this fabric? And they emailed back and they said, oh yes, this fabric has been so popular. We're just, it was used for the show, and we're so blown away. So we will do a second run of the fabric. And we were saved, and everything was going to be fine. And they were actually going to make it wider, a wider piece of fabric than what the show used. So that means that we would actually be able to order less yardage. With the shipping and everything, it still equaled out to be about the same that we anticipated. But it was a wider bolt of fabric, so that means that we were able to use more of it to make the dress. And so it all ended up working out. When it finally arrived, we were just, oh my gosh, it was so exciting, because we've never handled anything like this before, like this quality or this expense or whatever. So I definitely felt like I had to wash my hands before I could touch it or anything. We did get the top of the bolt, so the rerun, we got the top of it because the selvage at the top, there was no embroidery, and so this wasn't cut from a pre-made roll or anything. Like, we got the top of it. So once we knew the fabric was secure, I went ahead and started working on my mock-up. Like I said, I started with my Cersei Lannister dress, the black mourning dress that I made for Haley previously. The sleeves are very different, but the construction of the dress is kind of similar. It's not a wrap dress, but just as far as like the skirt goes, as far as like having a bodice, I removed the shoulders. The sleeve shape, at least at the top, was very similar, and in the back. So that's what I started with as far as trying to figure out the panels. Like this little side cut here is exactly the same as Cersei Lannister's dress, and so we kind of like to think that the fashion in Westeros kind of continued on. Like maybe Alicent was like this huge trendsetter, and then later on like fashionable people like Cersei and Sansa and Marjorie all kind of had that similar cut, and so we like the continuity between those dresses. So started with that pattern, and looking at this dress, I was like, okay, it's not a wrap dress, so I've got to figure out a new front. I really wanted it to be like the show, where the princess seams are barely visible. They're really like off to the side on the actress in the show. And so I went through 4 pattern mock-ups trying to figure out how to adjust the princess seams so that the front of the dress it looked really similar to the show. I really wanted, if we were going to do the fabric, let's do the dress right, and let's try to make it as similar to the show. After the 4th mock-up, and it just wasn't coming together, Haley took me aside and said, Michael, you're not dressing the actress in the show, you're dressing me, and I am shaped differently, and so we're gonna need the princess seams where they're supposed to be on my body. And so I said, yes, of course, and sorry for wasting so much time. And finally just went back to square one, went back to the first mock-up I did of this pattern, and it fit perfectly, and it was fine. We just went from there. The rest of the fabric, and we'll try to link everything where we sourced everything in the description. So if I don't name a specific store, we'll try to all have it down in the description. The rest of the fabric, so Haley actually did find also the screen accurate inner sleeve fabric, this kind of green and gold flower fabric that was on the inner sleeve of the dress. So she did find it. Unfortunately, it was only available to wholesalers. So there was like 10 meters of it available, and it would have been astronomically expensive for us to buy that for the meter or less that we needed to actually make 2 sleeves. And so Haley found a wonderful dupe. It's like, if you didn't know it was the same, if it wasn't the same, it'd be, you never know. So maybe one day we'll come across the screen accurate somewhere. I could probably replace it, not too hard. The inner sleeve fabric, Haley also found the screen accurate, because I believe it was something similar to top fabric. It was this kind of lime green, kind of like Dupioni kind of moment. But it was so expensive, and all of these fabrics basically look the same. And so again, we went with like a less expensive alternate that, again, you'd never know. It's exactly the same look. If you look at the show, it's like the same fabric. So again, we didn't spend unnecessary amounts of money there. Also, the trim here, this trim is screen accurate as well. This came from a fabric and trim shop in Germany. Actually, a lot of the show, the buttons and a lot of things for House of the Dragon come from this shop. So if you're looking for other costumes, you might find that as a good resource. And So my pattern is all of the dress, and then Hiloi Sache, who is a wonderful pattern creator, actually came out with an Alicent pattern, and I was really struggling with the sleeves. There's a seam up through the middle here that I was really struggling to figure out, like, how to adjust a sleeve where there's no shoulder and there's no, it's all in the front, and then there's a seam down the back, and it was just this shape right at the elbow. It was just really hard for me to wrap my head around it. And so fortunately, Hiloi Sache came out with a wonderful pattern and was kind enough to send it to me, and I did end up using his pattern for the sleeve. I took out some of the the fullness in the back of the sleeve. They were quite a bit more bell-shaped than I wanted, and so I just kind of shaved off maybe about a third of what was going on back there to kind of create that nice wide triangular shape that I see in the show. But this fit perfectly. This like solved everything, as having this nice shape. That was Hiloi Sache's pattern. So thank you so much. Go check him out. He's a wonderful creator, and he sells his patterns on Etsy. So then once the pattern was finally finished and I did all the mock-ups and we're like, okay, let's go for it, I had to cut the fabric, and that was really scary because you can't make any mistakes. We had the perfect, I think down to the very end of the fabric, we had the perfect amount of yardage to make this dress happen. And if I just messed up, if I didn't think of everything completely through from beginning to end, and just messed up, then we would have to buy more fabric, and that'd be crazy. So really, I had the dress pulled up on a tablet, and I was comparing pictures, like exact placement. These flowers in particular right here at the front, kind of these branches coming off here, and then these flowers here at the top, that's what I use as kind of a reference point to where to start the dress. And I've realized since that even like this isn't fully correct, because the dress actually dips down where mine comes up, but once I committed to this cut, it was these flowers were all positioned, and that became more important than trying to like remove that stuff to have it point down. So that's just how my dress ended up. So you can look at the reference pictures, and it's really more like down, but this is my dress, and this is how we ended up doing it. So cut out the huge front panel. It's all one long front panel. The back panels as well are two long panels. Don't often get to see the back of the dress. So two big panels here. It comes down at the waist and then spreads out. So with the skirt being so full, it's really what ate up so much of the yardage, because those big triangular dress pattern that takes up a lot of stuff. So I had to kind of make everything go in one direction, because the pattern of the fabric, we couldn't have like, you know, Frankensteining your pattern pieces around. The embroidery would flip-flop, would be in the wrong position. The only place that I had to compromise and change the plan was in the sleeves. So yes, the sleeves are upside down, and so many people commented that on my initial cutting video, like, oh, you cut the sleeves upside down. I know. It would cost like $200 to order more yardage to be able to do such big sleeves in the correct orientation. So you don't have to tell anybody, and I won't tell anybody that that's how we ended up having to do it. So the sleeves, yes, are upside down, but everything else is great. Everything else we positioned just about exactly as much as was reasonable to do so. It was a lot of lessons in figuring out pattern matching, placing the panels and the side pieces exactly where they needed to be, so that I could get this mirrored effect coming up here. So it was a lot of work, positioning everything, mirroring everything well. I think it probably took me an hour and a half to cut out everything, and it was totally worth it, because it all worked out great. I really didn't have any problems. And then it was time to cut out the inner sleeve lining. Something that might be interesting to note is that on the inside of one of these sleeves, I actually ran out of this green kind of dupionium fabric, and so I had to kind of Frankenstein more pieces together. But it's all in the inner sleeve, so you can't actually see it. But I did run out of yardage, and had to, with how wide and everything these big triangular sleeve patterns are. So those are all just little secrets on the inside that nobody needs to know about. The inner lining, so on the inner lining of the dress, I can't really turn it inside out, but on the inside of the bodice, on the top of the dress, there is the same green silk. So this silk is on the inside of the dress, but without all the embroidery. And so I think we got like a meter or so of that, of just the plain green silk. It's not really visible, but as far as like, like kind of like peaks inside, and just if it were to roll down a little bit, I just wanted it to be really consistent. And it also give more structure to the top of the dress, kind of being like a more solid silk. Skirt, if we have this emerald green satin from Shannon Fabrics, and so they sent this to us. So this was a gifted item, and so they were very kind to send it our way. And so that's on the inner lining of the dress. So this helps with like cooling, and so the inner lining there is a different fabric. So yeah, I cut out everything, and then it was time to start sewing it together. So pattern matching really became the goal as much as possible. I said, like, if I'm going to commit to doing the screen accurate fabric, I want to do a good job. I want everything to be really lined up and really reflective as possible. And so going through, really the key that I found was a multi-step process. And so first it was going to be pinning. I was going to take my seam allowance, and it was going to be folding the top part up, and then pinning mirror images of the design on the fabric. So like here on the sleeve, we can see that there is a mirror design here. These are like perfectly as perfect as I can get it, reflective of each other on both sides. The same is true on the back of the dress, and so these are like reflective all the way down. It's also true on the back of the sleeves, and so the way that the was cut, I was able to get symmetry on both sides. And so I would take the fabric, I would take my seam allowance and just pin kind of exactly like the mirror part. Then I basted, hand basted, so big wide stitches over that so I could take the pins out and remove that. And then stitch over my basting line, keeping maybe a little, like just a millimeter even, to the like the left of the basting line, so that when it opened, you know, there's a little bit of fabric that's going to be on the inside of that fold. And so when it opened, I wanted it to still be reflective. And so if I got too deep into it, the reflection would kind of be cut off in the middle, and I wanted as much as visible to be possible. So just a little to the side of the basting stitches, so we could keep everything nice and secure so those pins wouldn't fall out. I really do enjoy basting stitches for things like that. Just keep everything nice and solid so that when we're working with it, it's kind of already sewn. We're just machine sewing over that. I did like a point, like a one stitch length, because I did a lot of tests on scraps of the silk, and I found that if you like tugged on it, the stitches were really visible. And so I did teeny tiny stitches on this silk, so that at any seams or anything, we're not going to see visible stitches. It's just going to be a solid piece all the way around. So I found that worked really well. So then it was time to start assembling the dress. So making the dress twice, once for the inside lining and then for the outer shell. The inside bodice, so on the flip side, on the inside of all this, the bodice is boned. We have plastic boning. Decided to go with that rather than metal. In hindsight, we probably should have gone with metal because it would have provided more support. And I might go back someday and maybe take out the plastic boning and replace it with metal. But right now it's like a whale's bone plastic alternative on the inside here. So those are in all of the seams. So it's in the princess seam, it's in the side seams, and it's in the back seams, just to create more structure here. It's also up and down the middle. So there's two pieces of boning that go up here through these seams, and so that just helps keep everything up. We still find that we have to kind of yoink it up throughout the day to keep it from kind of sagging and wrinkling. I don't know if that's just a consequence of it being a sleeveless dress, off the shoulder dress, but it's probably something I could do to fix that. So maybe someday I'll go in there and replace the boning. But so the bodice kind of cuts off the lining, cuts off on the inside, and then the rest is the skirt. So I just assembled it all inside out, and then started sandwiching the two pieces together. There is the trim along the top, so that's all sewn in by hand. Really wanted to get it precise and exactly where I want it to be, so everything's sewn in by hand. Then everything's turned inside out, and then I hand stitched the hem. Actually, on the way to a con, I did it in the back of a car, and I also forgot my green thread at home, so I had used gold thread, and so the hand stitching on the hem is actually gold thread instead. And you can see here the names of our people who donated to the dress, and everyone was just so kind and generous to do that. I did a bias tape along the bottom of the fashion dress, folded it up inside, and then sewed it to the lining. And I pinned it while it was draped on the dress form so that it would hang very naturally. If I did everything flat and then actually put the dress on, there's going to be weird bunches here and there. And there's actually weird bunches when I hang it up on a hanger. There are two kind of velvet straps that are sewn into the armpits to help hold the dress up. And when I hold it up on the hanger, I kind of freaked out because my stitches that were keeping the hem together were all bunchy and looking weird. But this is couture sewing, and so it's not actually meant to be on a hanger, it's meant to be on a body. And so when I actually got it on Haley, everything flattened out, and I did a big sigh of relief, because that was the first time she was trying it on, like officially, after I completely finished sewing everything. After doing the hem in the car on the way to GalaxyCon Raleigh, then we sewed on the jewelry. And so Haley actually asked the costume designer, Janny Termaine, I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly, where she found this. She's pretty active on social media, the costume designer, and she was posting about House of the Dragon, so Haley actually commented, like, where'd you get the jewelry and the necklace and everything? And she actually replied that it was all like thrift store jewelry pieces that were custom, or like one of a kind and non-reproducible. So of course they were. So Haley created the necklace here through her own ingenuity, and it's so beautiful. It's got these little tiny frames, these little like picture frame charms or kind of jewelry pieces, and then these wide clear kind of glass marbles. And then she took aluminum foil and then just did a little bit of green paint, a little bit of gold ink, and then just gently set the gem kind of onto the paint to create this really cool marbling effect, and then gently picked it off and then let it dry and then glued it to the jewelry pieces. And so then there's little jump rings that are connecting each of the panels, and then there are these little gold bobs that she got from, it was either a necklace or a bracelet, I can't remember which. But she cut all of those off using metal cutters and then looped them into the jump rings. The earrings, I think she got those on Amazon. Well, Haley, editor's note, where did you get these? The jewelry on the front was a 3D print design, and again, I apologize, I didn't write down the name of the guy who actually designed these, so we'll put it here. So thank you so much for designing this. His is available on Etsy for either the file or printing the pieces. And so Haley was communicating with him. We really wanted to be able to have control of the size because we wanted to hold it up to our dress and be like exactly proportional to what it was in the show. And so we actually bought the STL file and then had our friend Ian at Super Daft Bros kindly resin print them for us. So they'd be really smooth and not need any kind of sanding or anything. The connectors in between were actually too small to connect all the pieces, which we unfortunately found out like the night before the GalaxyCon. So we had to go in and hand stitch all of the links together. It's all with gold thread. You can't really see unless you get right up close to it. So those are all done by hand. Each one is we just looped a whole bunch of thread together through the little holes, through the holes of the kind of the flower pieces, and then hand stitched each of these onto the dress. And so that took a while. But we got it done. Everything got done in time, and it was wonderful. And Haley looked amazing. We hung out with our friends Amanda and Alex at GalaxyCon Raleigh. Amanda did this incredible Rhaenyra dress, and we really wanted to have these be shown together. Haley also styled her own wig, and so you might be able to see it up over my shoulder. But yeah, she styled that all herself, and insert some videos here of her styling the wig with all its elaborate knots in the back. And she looked beautiful. She looked incredible. It was so hot that day. I was just Haley's handler. I didn't wear any cosplay or anything. And then our friend Kerstin was there also. And so we were just Haley's handlers throughout the day, keeping Haley nice and cool, making sure that on the con floor we didn't step in any gum or puddles or anything, because that would have been disastrous. I also skipped past in the back. There's one detail I did not add, because in the show it's all covered up by her hair, first off. So secondly, we were kind of in con crunch mode and we were getting towards the end, and so I installed an invisible zipper. I was planning on doing kind of 2 fake plackets because her dress is actually it's laced up the back, and I had full intentions of doing that. I had the pattern figured out already, but then we just got to the end and we're like, why are we bothering? Like, no one's looking at the back anyway. The wig, the ponytail kind of in the back kind of covers all of this up anyway. Let's just let it be. It's fine. And it was fine. It fit Haley perfectly the first time she tried it on, which is very exciting. She's worn it one other time. She wore it at DragonCon last year, and hope to wear it many more times. So it came together beautifully. Really proud of all of it, and so again, so thankful for the support that we had from everybody on Ko-fi who donated so that we could play with this fabric, play with the screen accurate fabric from the show. It was really a treat, and very, very touched that people would take that time. Again, I'm looking at the dress and forgetting details I forgot to talk about. So there's also trim on the sleeve. Usually piping is going to be hidden on the inside of the seam. We can see that the tape of the piping is kind of exposed here. And so, and I noticed that on the inside of the sleeve that the bias tape was actually on the outside. And so I asked the costume designer, Janny, if that was intentional. And she responded, yes, it was added afterward. And so I was like, well, if it's good enough for Janny, it's good enough for me. And so instead of machine sewing it all on the inside and then turning it all inside out, I actually went through and took the time to hand stitch the tape into the inside of the sleeve. So it's nice and seamless on the outside. On the inside, you can see the tape, and that's how they did it in the show. So that's how we did it on the dress. So thank you so much for joining for this cosplay breakdown of our Alicent Hightower dress from House of the Dragon. I hope you enjoyed watching it and seeing some of our process. You can see more process videos on our Instagram accounts. I'm at The Wizard Tailor and Haley is at Hobbit Party. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, give us a comment, or if there's any questions that I didn't answer that you still have, you can leave a comment down and we'll answer those. And I'm really hoping to do more cosplay breakdowns like this throughout the year. I definitely want to make this channel more active and talk about our costumes in a nice, long, concise way. If you enjoy them, give us a like so we'll keep making more of them, and we'll see you next time. Bye.